They called it a routine patrol. A Galactic Empire general slaps a child and executes her dog in a crowded market. He doesn't know her father is the one they whisper about in dark corners, Baba Yaga. This single act of cruelty will unravel an empire that thought humanity was merely amusing. What happens when patience becomes a weapon and myths walk among us? At Gyron Station, you won't find tidy imperial order. This market moves like a living thing, a breathing, bargaining organism made of a dozen species and twice as many languages. A Scythian merchant trades salvaged warp coils. A human teenager sells banned neurostimulants from a folding table. Under the arched metal ceilings, commerce ignores regulation. The air smells of spiced meat, engine coolant, and something like ozone from illicit tech exchanges. Patrols walk these corridors, but they don't control them. They observe. They record. They regard the chaos with helmets on and rifles slung. The general moves differently. He walks with his faceplate retracted. He breathes the recycled station air as if it's beneath him. To him, this marketplace isn't civilization. It's noise. A vibrant, undignified spectacle of survival, the kind that empires are built to manage, not understand. He watches a human woman barter for medical supplies using salvaged data chips. She's sharp, resourceful. She knows values he's never had to learn. He sees only disorder, a lack of protocol, an absence of the clean lines and clear hierarchies that keep empires standing. What he misses is the community forming in those transactions, the trust being traded alongside goods, the quiet agreements made eye to eye, not screen to screen. Each deal here is a small act of independence. A farmer trades homegrown vegetables for ship parts. A mechanic fixes a droid in exchange for information. None of it appears on imperial ledgers. None of it requires permission. The general's presence is meant to intimidate. But the market absorbs him. It flows around his polished armor like water around a stone, unimpressed, unchanged. This is the front line of human resilience, not with guns or warships, with stubborn, ordinary persistence, a determination to live, trade, and adapt under the shadow of imperial oversight. The general's arrogance hangs around him like a cloud. He believes his authority is absolute, that these people are compliant because they must be. He doesn't recognize the defiance in their steady hands, the calculation in their smiles. He sees a child with a dog, just another piece of the clutter, another uncontrolled variable in a system he's here to dominate. What he doesn't see is the network of glances between vendors, the slight pause in conversation as he passes. The market holds its breath when imperial boots come too close. It's a pressure cooker built on generations of suppressed resistance. All it needs is a spark. The stage isn't set by soldiers or strategy. It's set by carelessness meeting dignity, one man's contempt facing generations of quiet endurance. The collision won't be loud at first. It will start with a slap, a death, a few words spoken softly. But from that moment, this marketplace stops being an outpost. It becomes an origin point, the place where carelessness ignited the fire that empires don't come back from. The girl is small. Her dog is smaller. They're no taller than the general's knee plating. The dog has one ear that doesn't stand up straight. The girl holds a half-eaten fruit pastry in her left hand. They're just standing there, blocking the thoroughfare, obstructing imperial movement. He doesn't see a child. He sees an obstacle, a slow-moving, poorly disciplined piece of local clutter. His hand comes up not in anger, but in routine. A backhanded sweep that's more gesture than strike. It's the motion you'd use to clear dust from a console. The impact isn't brutal. It's casual. The kind of unthinking dominance that reveals more than any speech about imperial authority ever could. The dog moves first. Not to attack, to position itself between the girl and the armor. A low growl forms in its throat. It's a terrier mix, 20 pounds at most. It shows more tactical awareness than the officer wearing the command insignia. The dog understands threat assessment. The general only understands hierarchy. His sidearm clears its holster. One shot, center mass. The sound is flat in the enclosed space, no echo. Just the wet impact and the sudden silence where panting used to be. The dog drops without sound. The girl doesn't scream. She looks from the body to the general's face. Her cheek is red where he struck her. There's pastry on her sleeve. This isn't policy. This isn't even cruelty by design. It's the unconsidered violence of absolute power, the kind that happens when consequences become theoretical, when the people you rule stop being people and become problems to be managed. He holsters the weapon without checking the barrel, without looking at the girl's face. He's already moving past the incident. It's logged, filed, done. The market's noise doesn't return. The usual clatter of commerce stays muted. But it's not just fear holding them silent. It's recognition. They've seen this before, in smaller ways. Overcharges at Imperial Customs, confiscated shipments, family members who don't come home from off-world work details. This is just the same song played louder. The general hears the quiet as approval, as proper respect for Imperial authority. He doesn't recognize the quality of that silence. It's not submission. It's storage. Every person in that corridor is filing this moment away, not as another example of Imperial strength, as another debt to be settled. He creates his own defeat with that single motion. Not because he killed a dog, not because he struck a child, because he demonstrated that the Empire's greatest weakness isn't military, it's moral. The blindness that comes from never having to answer for your actions, the assumption that some people don't matter enough to have consequences. That dog had a name. That girl has a father. The general doesn't think about either. He's already considering his next patrol route. The incident is behind him. But consequences aren't linear. They don't follow protocols or respect chain of command. Some debts get collected by unexpected creditors. She doesn't cry. She doesn't flinch. The girl looks up at the general from where she stands over her dog's body. Her eyes track the red mark on her cheek as if calculating its dimensions. She speaks 3 words. "Sorry, I didn't see." Her voice doesn't shake. It carries, not loud. Not soft, precise. Each word placed like a stone in a wall. This isn't an apology. It's a statement of fact delivered with unnerving composure, the kind of control that doesn't belong to children. The crowd recognizes it before the general does. They've seen Imperial violence before. They haven't seen this response. A vendor holding a data slate lets it slip from his fingers. The clatter echoes in the unnatural quiet. Her posture remains unchanged. Hands at her sides, shoulders level. She watches the general's face not with fear but assessment, like she's memorizing details for a report. The set of his jaw, the way his right thumb rests against his pistol grip, the slight wear on his shoulder plating. She's gathering intelligence while he's still processing her lack of appropriate reaction. The general sees a chastised child. He expects tears, trembling, the proper response to Imperial authority. What he gets is clinical observation. He mistakes her calm for shock, for the numbness that follows trauma. He doesn't recognize tactical discipline when it stands 3 feet tall and smells of pastry. The crowd sees something else. They see the stories they tell in locked rooms, the whispers about certain families, certain names. They see why some settlements never get Imperial inspections, why some shipments always get through. They're watching living proof that some rules don't apply to everyone. Even here, even now, her restraint becomes the first real resistance anyone has shown him today. More effective than any weapon, more destabilizing than any protest. Weapons can be confiscated. Protests can be dispersed. This quiet certainty can't be seized. It spreads through the market in sidelong glances, in the slight straightening of a back, in the unspoken understanding that something has changed. She delivers the line that seals his fate. Not with anger, not with threat, with simple declaration. My father won't like this. She states it like weather, an inevitable condition. The general hears a child's empty boast. The crowd hears a death sentence delivered by messenger. In that moment, she transforms from victim to catalyst. The incident stops being about a dead dog and becomes about invoked authority. She names the consequence he never considered. Not Imperial justice, not military protocol. Family business. The general turns away. He's already dismissing her. Another minor incident in a long day of minor incidents. He doesn't see how the market's energy has shifted, how the air itself feels charged now, how every transaction has paused not from fear but from anticipation. She kneels beside her dog. She doesn't touch the body. She just looks. Her hand goes to the red mark on her cheek once more. Not to soothe it, to remember it. The gesture is deliberate, methodical. She's making sure she won't forget the exact sensation, the exact angle of impact. The declaration of war isn't always shouted. Sometimes it's whispered by a child standing over a dead friend. Sometimes it's delivered in 3 polite words that mean nothing to the listener, and everything to those who understand the rules. The rules the Empire never bothered to learn. The alien elder moves through the crowd without parting it. He doesn't push. He just appears where space is open. a tall figure in worn traveler's robes. His skin has the texture of polished stone. His eyes hold the kind of patience that measures time in centuries, not minutes. He approaches the general not with supplication, but with the quiet authority of someone delivering a weather report to a man about to step into a storm. He doesn't look at the girl, doesn't glance at the body. His attention stays on the Imperial officer. He speaks in low galactic standard. The words carry. Not a plea, a briefing. The child you struck carries a name in her bloodline. There are shadows that hold more authority than rank. Some debts are paid with more than credits. He says the name, Baba Yaga. It hangs in the air between them, not as a threat, as a tactical update. The kind of intelligence field operatives would trade entire information networks to acquire. In certain sectors, that name functions as legal tender. In others, it serves as the only warning survivors receive before systems go dark. The general's response is a dry laugh, a dismissive wave of his gloved hand. He hears primitive superstition, local folklore, the kind of backward nonsense that keeps these frontier worlds from proper civilization. He misses the strategic context entirely. The elder isn't offering mythology. He's providing essential operational intelligence to a commanding officer who's too arrogant to receive it. This moment reveals the Empire's critical blind spot. Their entire intelligence apparatus focuses on fleet movements, resource allocations, political dissent. They map power through conventional channels. They have no taxonomy for influence that moves through stories, no protocol for authority that operates outside their bureaucracy. The Elder represents knowledge systems that predate the Empire itself, systems they've systematically disregarded as irrelevant. Myths aren't fairy tales in the frontier sectors. They're compressed intelligence. Survival data passed down through generations. The name Baba Yaga doesn't just mean powerful man. It signifies specific capabilities, particular methods, known patterns of engagement. It comes with verified accounts, confirmed incidents, the kind that don't appear in Imperial databases because the witnesses don't file reports. They just remember. The warning hangs between them like unsent data. The Elder watches the general's face, sees the contempt there, the absolute certainty that his understanding of power is complete, that nothing exists outside Imperial measurement. The alien doesn't press the point. He delivered the information. The responsibility for its reception lies with the recipient. He turns away without waiting for dismissal. His robes don't swirl dramatically. They just settle around him as he moves back into the market's flow. The general watches him go with amused contempt. Another primitive trying to intimidate with ghost stories. He doesn't see the other vendors watching the exchange. Doesn't notice how their postures change. How several make subtle hand signs to each other. How the atmosphere shifts from tension to anticipation. The Elder plants the seed without looking back. He knows some truths don't require belief to operate. They simply are. The general makes a mental note to increase cultural re-education efforts in this sector. Too much superstition. Too much irrational belief in things that can't be measured or controlled. He never considers that the irrational thing might be his own confidence. Some names function as strategic credentials. They open doors that Imperial rank cannot. They command loyalty that threats cannot secure. They operate in the spaces between official channels. The general mistakes his position for power. He doesn't understand that true authority often wears ordinary clothing. That the most dangerous forces in the galaxy don't need to announce themselves with titles. He steps from the docking tube like any other traveler. A man in a simple black suit carrying no luggage. His shoes make no sound on the grated flooring. His hands hang empty at his sides. He looks like someone returning from a long business trip. The kind of man who might be tired, might want a drink, might need to file expense reports. His face shows no particular expression. Not anger, not urgency, just the calm of someone who knows exactly where he's going and why. The Imperial sentries notice him. Their training identifies potential threats. They scan for weapons, for armor, for the telltale signs of hostile intent. They find nothing. Just a middle-aged man in civilian clothing, walking with the steady pace of someone catching a transport. They register his presence as negligible, a low-priority observation target. Their mistake isn't in their assessment. It's in their understanding of what constitutes a weapon. His calm operates like a frequency they can't detect. Where the station hums with anxiety and suppressed fear, he moves through the atmosphere unchanged. The tension that grips the marketplace after the incident doesn't touch him. He absorbs it, neutralizes it. His ordinary appearance becomes extraordinary precisely because it's so out of place. In a sector buzzing with imperial patrols and nervous merchants, a calm man in a black suit draws more attention than any uniform. The soldiers at the checkpoint straighten as he approaches. They don't raise weapons. Protocol doesn't cover this. He doesn't look like a threat. He looks like someone's accountant. His politeness becomes his most unsettling feature. "Evening," he says. Not as a greeting, as a statement of fact. The words carry weight. They sound like the first line of a negotiation rather than casual acknowledgement. This is humanity's patience made visible, not the passive waiting of the oppressed, the active, controlled potential of someone who has measured time in decades, not minutes. The black suit isn't just clothing. It's a declaration. It says he operates outside their frameworks, that his authority doesn't come from rank or insignia, that his purpose transcends their understanding of conflict. His pace never changes, unhurried, deliberate, each step measured. He doesn't rush because he's been waiting for this moment for longer than these soldiers have been alive. His timeline operates on a different scale. The Empire thinks in terms of patrol rotations and shift changes. He thinks in terms of generations, of debts that compound interest across years. When he reaches the checkpoint, he doesn't stop walking. The lead soldier finally blocks his path. Rifle held at port arms. Standard procedure. The man looks at the weapon, then at the soldier's face. His eyes don't flicker, don't show concern. They simply observe. He speaks 7 words that change everything. "I just want to speak with your general." A pause. Then the final phrase that redefines the situation. "Surely you understand family business." The ordinary becomes extraordinary when backed by absolute resolve. The soldier hesitates. His training covers insurgents, terrorists, protesters. It doesn't cover a polite man invoking concepts that sound both personal and professional. Family business. The term hangs in the air between them. It carries echoes of something the Empire can't regulate, can't intimidate, can't control. The man waits. His hands remain visible, empty. His posture relaxed. He radiates the certainty of someone who knows how this ends. The soldiers feel it. Their weapons suddenly feel heavy, useless. They're facing something their drills never prepared them for. Not violence, not threat, just inevitability, wearing a black suit and speaking calmly about things they don't understand, but instinctively recognize as dangerous. The squad forms around him. 4 soldiers in full combat armor, rifles raised but not aimed. Standard containment procedure for an uncooperative civilian. Their weapons gleam under the station lights. Their helmets hide their faces but not their tension. They expect resistance. They prepare for violence. What they get is stillness. The man doesn't raise his hands, doesn't assume a defensive stance. He stands exactly as he was. A man in a black suit waiting for someone to finish speaking. His eyes move from soldier to soldier, not assessing threats, not looking for weaknesses, just recognizing their presence, acknowledging them as individuals who've been placed in his path. Their armor suddenly feels heavy, useless. The rifles in their hands become not weapons, but complications. They're trained to respond to aggression, to neutralize hostiles. This man offers no hostility, only certainty. His calm creates a vacuum where their training doesn't function. They can't arrest someone for being too still, can't shoot a man for looking at them with understanding rather than fear. He speaks, not to the squad leader, to all of them equally. "My daughter was struck today." The words land like stones in water. Ripples spread through their formation. "My dog was killed." He states the facts without emotion, without accusation. He might be reading from an incident report. The clarity of his delivery makes the events more real than any security footage could. The soldiers shift weight. Their rifle barrels dip slightly. They recognize something in his tone. Not threat, not warning, inevitability. He's not asking permission. He's explaining consequences, making sure they understand the stakes before they choose their next move. They face a decision they never trained for. Not whether to engage a target, whether to become part of something their manuals don't cover. Family business. The term hangs between them. They understand it instinctively. The unregulated justice that operates outside imperial law, the kind that doesn't care about rank or procedure. The man gives them an out, a chance to step aside, to remain soldiers rather than become participants. He offers them the choice their empire never gives anyone. He renders their violence irrelevant, not by being stronger, by changing the nature of the confrontation. This isn't about overpowering them. It's about making their weapons meaningless to the outcome. Their training focused on physical dominance, how to break resistance, how to enforce compliance. It never covered what to do when someone treats your entire military apparatus as a minor inconvenience. The squad leader finally speaks. Voice filtered through helmet speakers. "Stand down, civilian." The order sounds hollow. The man doesn't react to the command. He responds to the person behind it. "If I turn back now," he says, his voice even quieter than before, "I can't go home." He lets the words settle. Lets each soldier feel the weight of that statement. The second part comes like the closing of a door. "And if I can't go home," he tells them, looking at each helmet in turn, "then neither can you." He isn't threatening them. He's describing the new reality, one where their safety depends on his success, where their futures are now tied to his mission. He redefines power in that moment. Not as force applied, as consequence accepted. The synchronized understanding that some paths once chosen cannot be abandoned. Their rifles lower completely. The soldiers don't stand aside. They simply stop being obstacles. The man walks between them. None reach to stop him. They've been given new orders, not by rank, by reality. Their weapons stay in their hands, but their purpose has changed. They're no longer imperial enforcers. They're witnesses to a different kind of authority, one that doesn't need armor to be absolute. The name moves through the ranks like a current, whispered from guard post to command center, not shouted, not announced, carried on the low hum of helmet comms and the sideways glances of soldiers who thought they understood their deployment. Baba Yaga, it starts as a question, becomes a statement, mutates into operational reality. The soldiers don't freeze because they're frightened. They pause because their training contains no response protocols for this scenario. Their manuals cover insurgent tactics, boarding actions, riot control. They contain no procedures for confronting a story that's decided to become flesh. The man in the black suit isn't just a person anymore. He's a narrative that's been weaponized, a strategic concept walking on two legs. Baba Yaga isn't a name. It's a credential. It operates outside imperial ranking systems. It carries more authority than any fleet command. The general's bravado about ship counts and firepower crumbles against this understanding. His confidence was built on measurable things: tonnage, weapons, yield, troop numbers. He has no metrics for calculating the destructive potential of a story that's been told in hushed tones across star systems for decades. Myth becomes operational advantage when belief transforms into tactical reality. The Empire's intelligence reports suddenly reorganize themselves in the minds of the officers reviewing them. Incidents they'd classified as unrelated, unexplained communication blackouts, supply lines that vanished without debris, political figures who changed policies overnight. They all snap into a new pattern, a constellation of influence they hadn't recognized because they were looking for military signatures instead of narrative ones. The soldiers realize they're not fighting a man. They're facing a story that's been years in the making. A carefully constructed narrative of capability and consequence. Their weapons feel inadequate not because they lack firepower, but because you can't shoot a concept. You can't arrest a legend. The man in the black suit simply embodies something much larger than himself, something that won't be stopped by bullets or barriers. Imperial power suddenly appears fragile. The polished armor, the advanced rifles, the command structure. All of it seems temporary compared to the steady certainty walking toward them. The legend doesn't need to threaten. It simply exists as an unavoidable outcome. Some names function as their own artillery. They carry enough destructive potential to dismantle confidence, to make soldiers question their purpose, to turn secure positions into vulnerable points. The general's arrogance evaporates. His command of fleets means nothing here. His authority derives from a system that this narrative operates outside of. He faces someone who doesn't recognize imperial ranks, who doesn't care about chain of command, who answers to a different set of rules entirely, rules that have been written in the collective memory of every species that's ever crossed paths with that name. The soldiers lower their weapons not because they're ordered to, because they recognize the futility of the gesture. They're not surrendering to a man. They're acknowledging that some forces can't be contained by military might, that some stories become so powerful they alter reality itself. The man walks through their formation unchanged. The myth has done its work before he even reaches his destination. The general stands in full command armor, his helmet retracted to show his face. He still believes this is containment. A simple enforcement action that's gotten out of hand. He sees one man in civilian clothing, a single opponent, a problem to be solved with imperial efficiency. His mind operates within established parameters. Threat assessment, response protocols, rules of engagement. He delivers his line with absolute confidence. I will crush you quickly. The words echo in the station corridor. They sound powerful to him. Authoritative. The kind of declaration that normally makes civilians shrink back. The man in the black suit doesn't react. He simply watches. His expression doesn't change. He's heard empty threats before. The general's vision remains limited. He sees a single individual. He doesn't see the network, the countless connections, the careful planning that brought this moment into existence. His military training focused on visible threats, tangible assets, measurable force. He has no framework for understanding opposition that operates through patience and preparation, rather than immediate violence. This represents the Empire's fatal flaw. The assumption that scale equals superiority, that commanding fleets automatically means controlling situations. The general has more firepower at his disposal than entire frontier worlds, yet he stands helpless before one determined father. His weapons become irrelevant. His soldiers stand useless. His authority evaporates. He prepares for a duel, a contest of strength, a test of military capability. He doesn't realize the war already ended before he arrived. The battlefield was chosen years ago. The strategy developed across generations. His opponent didn't just react to today's events. He activated plans that were waiting for this exact moment. The general's confidence stems from never having faced someone who thinks in decades rather than patrol rotations. His weapons and warriors become complications rather than advantages. The man in the black suit doesn't need to fight them. He simply renders them irrelevant. A slight pressure point application disarms the first guard. A precise nerve strike incapacitates the second. The techniques aren't lethal. They're efficient. The general watches his trained soldiers drop without a single shot fired. The Empire's propaganda has become its reality. The general truly believes his superiority is inherent, that his position guarantees victory. He fails to recognize that his power depends entirely on others accepting it. When someone appears who doesn't acknowledge imperial authority, the entire structure reveals its fragility. The armor, the weapons, the ranks, they all depend on belief. His miscalculation isn't tactical, it's fundamental. He mistakes control for power, compliance for loyalty, fear for respect. The man walking toward him represents something the Empire cannot comprehend. A different kind of authority. One that doesn't need to be enforced because it's earned through action and integrity. The general finally understands his error as the distance closes. This isn't about overwhelming force. It's about absolute resolve. The kind that cannot be broken because it was forged through patience and principle. His imperial might means nothing against someone who answers to a higher law, one written not in regulations but in basic human dignity. Empires fall when they mistake their own stories for truth. When they believe their propaganda so completely, they can't recognize actual reality. The general faces not just a man but the consequence of imperial arrogance made manifest. A living correction to the false narrative of inherent superiority. The first signal appears on a logistics monitor, then another, then a dozen more, not in random patterns, in coordinated bursts across imperial communications channels. This isn't interference, it's activation. A patient network waking after years of silent operation. The Empire's command centers light up with alerts they can't process. Signals written in human code they never learned to read. Entire sectors flash on tactical displays, not with rebel attacks, with coordinated digital presence. The Empire's surveillance systems, designed to detect weapons and open rebellion, show nothing. They were looking for physical threats. They missed the relationships being built in plain sight. The trust being exchanged along trade routes. The quiet agreements made in docking bays and maintenance tubes. This network didn't form overnight. It grew through generations of apparent compliance. Human traders moving goods, technicians servicing imperial systems, travelers visiting relatives on different worlds. Each connection seemed insignificant. Each interaction appeared harmless. The Empire saw orderly behavior where humans were building parallel infrastructure. They monitored for dissent and found only cooperation. The advantage wasn't technological, it was temporal. Humanity played the long game while the Empire counted quarterly production reports. They exploited timing and trust instead of force. Every human contact became a potential node. Every transaction carried hidden data. The Empire's scanners searched for weapons. They should have been analyzing handshakes, studying conversation patterns, measuring the depth of relationships instead of the size of armaments. An Imperial communications officer stares at his screen. His hands tremble slightly. He's watching sectors light up with activity that shouldn't exist. Patterns that defy Imperial encryption protocols. Signals that move through approved channels without triggering security protocols. The network isn't hacking the system. It's using the system exactly as designed, just for purposes the architects never imagined. His voice cracks when he reports to command. Fleets are moving. Entire sectors are lighting up with human code. The panic isn't professional concern. It's the sound of someone realizing their understanding of reality was incomplete. The Empire's belief in its own omnipotence shatters in that moment. Their control was always an illusion that humans carefully maintained. They ruled because they were permitted to rule, not because they truly commanded. The network operates on principles the Empire never valued: decentralized authority, distributed intelligence, redundant connections. Where Imperial power concentrated in command structures, human influence spread through countless minor interactions. A mechanic fixes a droid and shares a data chip. A trader includes a coded message with shipment paperwork. A teacher includes patterns in children's lessons, small actions that seemed meaningless until they synchronized. The Empire's technological superiority becomes its weakness. Their systems, designed for efficiency and control, provide the perfect infrastructure for the network to operate. The very channels they built to monitor their subjects now carry the signals of their undoing. Human code moves through Imperial communications like blood through arteries. The body doesn't reject it because it looks like part of the system. Imperial analysts scramble to understand what's happening. They search for a central command, a leadership structure, a pattern of attacks. They find nothing but ordinary people doing ordinary things. The network's strength lies in its simplicity. It doesn't need to command. It only needs to coordinate, to activate plans that were waiting for the right moment. The moment when patience stopped being a strategy and became a weapon. The agitator's panic spreads through command channels. Voices tight with confusion. Reports of systems responding to unknown protocols. Ships changing course without orders. Defense grids accepting new command sequences. The Empire's military might, so impressive on parade grounds, proves useless against an opponent that understands how the machinery really works. Not just the technology, the people operating it. The trust that makes systems function. Humanity's victory wasn't won today. It was prepared across decades of careful work. Built connection by connection, trust by trust. The Empire's fall begins not with explosions, but with signals moving through their own networks, carrying code they can't decipher, executing plans they never saw coming. Their omnipotence was always conditional on human cooperation. Today that cooperation ends, the rifles point. They don't fire. Trigger mechanisms engage. Firing pins strike. The energy cells remain inert. Advanced Imperial weaponry becomes expensive metal clubs. Around the station, similar failures cascade. Communication consoles display static. Tactical screens show error codes. Defense cannons rotate toward targets but refuse to acknowledge fire commands. The Empire's technological superiority dissolves into silent refusal. Humanity didn't defeat this technology. They co-opted it. Patient hands had worked on these systems for years. Maintenance technicians who seemed compliant. Engineers who appeared devoted to Imperial service. Each repair contained hidden modifications. Every software update carried embedded code. The Empire's confidence in their systems became their vulnerability. They believed their technology was secure because they built it. They forgot who maintained it. Their advantage wasn't brute force. It was preparation. Years of studying Imperial systems. Learning their weaknesses. Understanding their architecture. The code waited inside the machinery. Dormant, patient, activated only when needed. The weapons that should have guaranteed Imperial dominance become monuments to their arrogance. Physical evidence that superior tools mean nothing without superior understanding. The general watches his command console flicker. Status reports from across the sector pour in, not battle damage assessments. System failure notifications. His fleets report loss of navigation control, weapon systems going offline, communications channels filled with human code they cannot decipher. His ships don't answer his commands anymore. They respond to new instructions. Instructions written years earlier by people he considered beneath notice. Advanced technology becomes useless against better preparation. The Empire invested in better weapons. Humanity invested in better understanding. They learned how the systems actually worked instead of how they were supposed to work. They found the gaps in the protocols, the weaknesses in the security, the places where trust could be inserted like a key in a lock. Superiority isn't about having better tools. It's about understanding how they really work. The Empire saw their technology as a finished product. Humanity saw it as a living system, something that could be influenced, changed, redirected. Their victory came not from overpowering imperial might, but from understanding it well enough to make it irrelevant. The station lights flicker. Emergency systems fail to activate. Environmental controls stutter. The Imperial soldiers stand holding weapons that have become decorations. Their armor systems display warning symbols. Their helmet communications show network errors. They are surrounded by technology that should protect them. Technology that now refuses to acknowledge their authority. Human code moves through Imperial systems like water through cracks. It doesn't break anything. It simply redirects, changes permissions, alters priorities. The Empire built magnificent machines. Humanity learned how to make those machines choose new masters. The preparation wasn't dramatic. It was daily, routine, the kind of work that goes unnoticed until the moment it matters. Weapons that point but don't fire become lessons in humility. The Empire's greatest strength transformed into their most visible weakness. Their technology designed to control others now controls them. The systems they relied upon now rely on new instructions. Instructions written by the people they underestimated. The general finally understands. His fleets don't answer to him anymore. They answer to the network, to the careful planning, to the patient work, to the understanding that true power doesn't come from controlling technology, but from understanding it completely. His command console displays a simple message in human script. He cannot read it. He doesn't need to. The meaning is clear in the silent weapons surrounding him. He stands in the central plaza. No weapon, no armor, just the same black suit and absolute certainty. The Imperial soldiers form a perimeter around him. Rifles raised. Cannons oriented toward his position. The display should feel overwhelming, should communicate absolute domination. Instead, it feels like ceremony. Like ritual, the weapons point but they don't threaten. They simply exist as facts in the space between him and his objective. His calm operates like a force field. The tension that should surround an armed standoff dissipates around him. He doesn't acknowledge the firepower arrayed against him. His attention stays fixed on the general. His movements remain unhurried, deliberate, each step measured. The soldiers track him with their weapons, but their focus seems divided. They're watching something they don't understand. A man who treats their overwhelming force as background noise. He speaks. Not to the general, to the situation. This isn't just vengeance. The words cut through the silence. They carry without effort. This is notice. The statement lands not as threat but as information. A strategic update delivered to all parties present. The weapons surrounding him become audience rather than threat. Their purpose shifts from enforcement to witness. The entire encounter reveals its true nature. Not as a confrontation, as a demonstration, a warning shot across the Imperial bow. This isn't about defeating the general personally. It's about showing the Empire what happens when patience ends, when consequences become inevitable. The man in the black suit serves as both messenger and message. His calm precision makes the Empire's military might seem clumsy, overstated, unnecessary. He redefines the conflict from personal vengeance to strategic communication. This moment isn't about settling a score. It's about establishing new rules of engagement. The Empire believed it controlled the terms of conflict. It believed violence belonged to them alone. This demonstration proves otherwise. It shows that true power doesn't come from weapons. It comes from resolve, from the willingness to wait until the moment is right. The general stands surrounded by his soldiers. His armor gleams under the station lights. He represents everything the Empire believes about itself. Order, control, superiority. The man in the black suit represents something older, something that doesn't need to announce itself with polished metal and raised weapons. His authority comes from a different source, one the Empire can't regulate or command. He delivers the final assessment. You killed him because you thought it would mean nothing. The words hang in the air. The general's face shows confusion, the realization that his understanding of value differs from reality. But it meant everything. The statement carries finality, the kind that closes discussions rather than opens them. One man becomes the voice of patient humanity's final warning, not through shouting, not through dramatic gestures, through absolute certainty, through the quiet confidence of someone who knows how this ends. The Empire's weapons remain pointed. Their soldiers remain in position. But the confrontation has already concluded. The message has been delivered. The warning has been given. What happens next depends on whether the Empire understands the new reality it faces. The Empire saw humans smiling and thought it primitive amusement. They watched our joking and playing and marked it down as simple entertainment. Unsophisticated behavior from a species they considered barely civilized. What they missed was the predator behind the pleasant facade, the calculation behind the laughter, the memory behind the relaxed posture. We smile, we joke, we play, but we remember. Every slight, every insult, every strike. Each moment of imperial arrogance filed away. Not for immediate response. For future consideration. The Empire believed these were signs of weakness, indications of a species content with subjugation. They failed to recognize the patterns. The way a joke might cover a strategic assessment. How a smile could hide tactical observation. Humanity's patience isn't weakness, it's hunting strategy. The kind perfected by predators who understand timing, who know that the best strike comes not from strength alone but from perfect positioning. The Empire thought they controlled predators when they were actually being studied. Their patterns recorded. Their weaknesses catalogued. Their habits observed through the lens of apparent submission. Human cunning becomes weaponized through perfect timing and coordination. The Empire focused on immediate threats, on visible resistance. They monitored for protests, for weapon stockpiles, for open rebellion. They never considered that the real danger might be in the mechanic who services their ships, the trader who moves between their worlds, the technician who maintains their systems. All smiling, all joking, all remembering. Their apparent primitive nature was the perfect camouflage for strategic preparation. The Empire looked for sophisticated conspiracies, for complex organizations. They never considered that the greatest threat might look like simple people going about their lives. Farmers tending crops, merchants bargaining, children playing with dogs. The ordinary became extraordinary because the Empire couldn't recognize strategy when it wore working clothes. The pleasant prey reveals itself as the ultimate predator, not through sudden transformation, through gradual revelation. The Empire's confidence in their control becomes their vulnerability. Their belief in our simplicity becomes their blind spot. They prepared for military confrontation. They never prepared for being outmaneuvered by people they considered beneath notice. And when the time comes, we unleash everything. Not just weapons, not just force. The accumulated knowledge of generations. The trust built across star systems. The careful preparation hidden in plain sight. The Empire's strength was always conditional, dependent on our cooperation, our patience, our willingness to play our role in their narrative of dominance. That narrative ends today. The predator doesn't need to announce itself. It simply acts. The coordination happens without visible signals. The preparation culminates without dramatic speeches. The Empire faces not an enemy they can fight, but a reality they can't control. Their military might becomes irrelevant against strategy they never saw coming. The lesson isn't about strength. It's about perception. The Empire saw what they wanted to see. A harmless species content with subjugation. They never looked behind the smiles. Never questioned the jokes. Never considered that play might be practice. That patience might be positioning. That the most dangerous opponent is the one who watches and waits until the moment is perfect. Now the moment has arrived. The preparation completes. The network activates. The Empire's understanding of power shatters against the reality of strategic patience. They controlled the weapons. They commanded the fleets. But they never truly understood the people they ruled. Never recognized that some predators smile before they strike. The general believed he commanded the space around Gyron Station. His tactical displays showed clean sectors, controlled approaches, orderly patrol patterns. His confidence rested on that clean electronic picture. The reality outside his viewports told a different story. Ships that seemed to be civilian transports, mining vessels on routine operations, maintenance craft performing system checks, all moving in patterns that appeared harmless, all following Imperial regulations to the letter. The cloaks dropped simultaneously, not in sequence, not in waves. As one coordinated action, emergency alerts flash across every command screen. The space around the station transforms in seconds. Civilian freighters reveal weapons mounts, mining ships drop false hull sections, maintenance craft reorient as gun platforms, engine flares light up across all approaches. Not just a few ships, dozens, then hundreds. A complete perimeter formed in perfect synchronization. These aren't new ships. They've been there all along, hidden in plain sight, moving through Imperial space with proper identification, filing flight plans, paying docking fees, their captains smiling at Imperial inspectors, their crews joking with station personnel, all while maintaining perfect battle positions, waiting for the signal. The Empire's surveillance saw what it expected to see. Compliant traffic. Normal operations. They never looked for battle formations wearing civilian clothing. Humanity's patience included perfect positioning while maintaining apparent compliance. Every ship in that formation had been waiting for this moment. Some for years. Their captains knew the coordinates, knew their assignments, knew exactly when to drop the disguises. The Empire's technological superiority couldn't compensate for strategic blindness. Their sensors were perfect. Their analysis was flawed. They looked for threats instead of understanding patterns. The net of inevitability tightens with mathematical precision. Ships move into final positions. Weapon systems come online. Targeting solutions lock. The formation isn't random. It's a textbook siege pattern, one that Imperial academies teach but never expected to see implemented against them. The fortress becomes the trap rather than the stronghold. The Empire's strongest position becomes its cage. Their own defenses now work against them. Superior positioning defeats superior force every time. The human ships don't outnumber the Imperial fleet. They don't outgun it. They simply occupy the right places at the right time. Their weapons cover every approach. Their fields of fire overlap perfectly. Any Imperial ship that tries to maneuver finds itself in multiple targeting solutions simultaneously. The Empire's technological advantage means nothing when they can't bring it to bear. Station Command realizes the truth too late. Their arrogance blinded them to the war already lost. They monitored for rebel attacks, for military buildup, for visible threats. They never considered that the threat might be the ships they inspected yesterday, the traders they taxed last week, the maintenance crews they ignored this morning. Human code now runs through their systems, written not in numbers alone but in patience planted years before. The general stares at his tactical display. The clean sectors now show red indicators everywhere, every approach covered, every escape route blocked. His fortress security becomes his prison walls. His superior firepower rendered useless by superior positioning. The ships hold formation. They don't fire. They simply exist as facts in space, facts that say everything about preparation versus presumption. The human ships hold position, weapon systems active but silent, engines flaring but not advancing. This isn't an attack formation. It's a demonstration. The restraint becomes more terrifying than any assault could be. The Empire expects violence. They prepare for battle. What they receive is silent judgment. Ships that could destroy everything instead simply exist as facts in space. Their inaction speaks louder than any bombardment. The message pulses across Imperial channels. Clean, clear, unencrypted. Do not mistake kindness for weakness. Do not mistake patience for surrender. The words land not as threat but as correction, a recalibration of understanding. Every Imperial outpost receives the transmission simultaneously. Officers stare at screens. Soldiers check weapons. Administrators review policies. All confronted with the same simple statement. This isn't victory in the traditional sense. It's demonstration of capability and resolve. The human fleets show what they could do without actually doing it. The Empire faces not destruction, but the certainty of destruction. Their military advantage means nothing against demonstrated restraint. The ships could fire. They choose not to. That choice carries more weight than any victory could. Humanity reveals its true nature through this display. Not prey to be controlled, not primitive beings to be managed. Patient judges who have been watching, recording, measuring. The Empire's dominance was always conditional, permitted rather than earned, maintained through human cooperation rather than imperial strength. That permission has now been formally revoked. The final line of the transmission changes everything. Do not mistake humanity for prey. It lands not as warning but as fact, a simple statement of reality that the Empire failed to recognize. Their entire understanding of power relations shifts in that moment. The predator becomes the prey. The hunter finds himself hunted. The rules of engagement have permanently changed. Imperial commanders review their protocols. Their training covered combat operations, siege warfare, planetary assaults. It never addressed this situation. Facing an opponent who demonstrates overwhelming force but refuses to use it, who shows capability but exercises restraint. This isn't warfare. It's re-education. The strategic message accomplishes what violence could not. It forces the Empire to question its fundamental assumptions, to reconsider its place in the galactic order. Military defeat can be recovered from. Psychological dismantling leaves permanent scars. The human fleets don't need to fire a single shot. Their presence alone rewrites the rules. Every Imperial soldier on that station understands the new reality. Their weapons feel heavy, useless. Their armor seems like costume rather than protection. They face not an enemy to fight but a truth to accept. The Empire's authority was always borrowed, always conditional. Now the lenders have called in the debt. The message spreads beyond military channels. Traders hear it in markets. Technicians catch whispers in maintenance tubes. Families discuss it over meals. The imperial narrative of dominance fractures under the weight of those simple words. Control was always an illusion maintained by mutual agreement. That agreement has been withdrawn. Humanity's patience becomes its ultimate weapon. The years of apparent submission. The generations of quiet observation. All culminate in this moment of perfect demonstration. The Empire prepared for rebellion. They never prepared for reassessment. For the moment when their subjects would stop following the script and start writing a new one. The ships hold their positions, their silence more eloquent than any declaration of war, their restraint more powerful than any attack. They demonstrate that true authority doesn't come from force alone. It comes from the wisdom to know when not to use it, from the patience to wait until the lesson will be properly received. The crowd watches, not with the fear that held them minutes before, not with the tension of people expecting imperial violence. They watch with silent awe. The transformation happens without announcement, without signal. One moment they're holding their breath. The next they're breathing in a new reality. These are merchants who've paid imperial tariffs for generations, smugglers who've dodged patrols their entire careers, aliens who've adapted their cultures to survive imperial domination. They know the weight of imperial power. They've felt its boot on their necks. They've measured their lives against its regulations. Their fear was earned through experience, through lost shipments, through disappeared friends, through the constant pressure of living under someone else's control. That fear transforms into something more dangerous than anger, more subversive than rebellion. Hope, not the weak hope of wishful thinking, the solid hope of witnessed possibility. They see not just resistance to imperial power. They see its complete inversion. The Empire's weapons point but don't fire. Its soldiers stand but don't act. Its authority exists but doesn't command. The silent awe isn't just about this victory. It's about what becomes possible now. The demonstration achieves what years of armed rebellion could not. It provides a credible alternative to empire. Not a different government, a different understanding of power itself. The crowd witnesses authority that doesn't need to threaten, control that doesn't require violence, respect that isn't demanded but earned. Every observer becomes a carrier of this new reality. The fruit vendor who saw the general backhand a child now watches imperial rifles fail to fire. The mechanic who repaired imperial ships now sees those ships answering to new commands. The drug runner who bribed imperial guards now watches those guards stand helpless. They will carry this sight back to their sectors, their families, their species. The story will spread not as rumor but as witnessed fact. Their fear of imperial retribution gets replaced by understanding of imperial vulnerability. The Empire's strength was always conditional, dependent on compliance, on accepted narratives, on the belief that resistance was futile. That belief shatters against the reality of one man walking through their defenses, of ships appearing where they shouldn't be, of weapons failing when they should work. The crowd that murmured in fear now watches in transformative silence. Their posture changes, shoulders straighten, Chins lift. Eyes that drop to avoid Imperial notice now hold steady. They're not just watching events unfold. They're absorbing a new way of being, learning that some authority doesn't come from rank or weapons. It comes from resolve, from patience, from the willingness to wait for the perfect moment.